Hello, everyone, and welcome to Our Awakening Journey, a podcast where I invite you to join me into deep and meaningful conversations about the awakening process. My name is Milan, and I'm your host. In each episode, I invite my guests to dive into deep insight about their own awakening process, hoping you will find here the guidance and the inspiration that you need to navigate the funky twists and turns of your own awakening journey. So today, in the second episode, we have a very special guest, Anne Bérubé. Thank you for being here, Anne.
Thank you so much for having me, Milan. It's such a joy to be here with you.
It's really an honor, and I was telling you before we started filming that and recording that I really felt a deep connection to your work. I actually thought to myself, maybe we're cosmic sisters or something like that, because I've been reading your book, preparing for this interview, and I thought, oh my God, we have so much in common as I teach in my school somatic spirituality, and the core of your work is embodied spirituality. And so I was really super excited to meet with you today and to create this amazing conversation. So thank you for creating time in your busy schedule to be with me and to be with the folks at home.
My pleasure. I'm so excited.
So for those who don't know you yet, or just finding out that Anne Bérubé exists on Earth, I will introduce you properly. So, at the age of 23, Anne's life was interrupted by a near fatal car accident, and a mystical experience. Trapped in the car, unable to breathe, she had a vision that forever realigned her life's trajectory. Her journey of introspection and personal transformation would lead to profound insights around self healing, inner happiness, and soul actualization. Now living her purpose every day, Anne is a powerful teacher with an uncommon ability to share her story and insights in a way that awakens the inner wisdom in others. I could really feel that reading your book. It was awakening my own wisdom. She helps women and men free themselves from the societal and parental conditioning that is holding them back from realizing their highest calling, the highest calling of their soul. Sorry. She is also the author of Be, Feel, Think, Do, and her latest book, The Burnout Antidote, that we're going to talk about today. So, so before we dive into the book, Anne, and into the spiritual embodied stuff, I always like to rewind with my guest and start before the awakening process, because at one point you weren't the teacher that you are today. You weren't the embodied teacher that you are today. You weren't necessarily a spiritual person. So I want to rewind before you were writing books, teaching on stage with amazing souls like Anita Morjani, Greg Braden, like before the whole thing started, because I'd like to give the people at home an image of the process, because sometimes we imagine that you're born with this kind of stuff, and sometimes you awaken through trauma or near-death experience, or you just don't even know that you're about to awaken. So let's rewind before you were like a public figure, writing the books and doing the work that you do. And maybe you can run us through the beginning of your awakening journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Milan. I think that's a really important point to make because
Yeah.
even the idea of a near-death experience, I've heard people say, "Oh, I wish I almost died," so that
Yeah.
I could wake up. And that's really not the purpose of my story, you
No.
know, because we have, like you said, we talked a little bit before the interview, that awakenings happen and sometimes we don't even label them awakenings.
Yeah.
And so it's really important to honor our subjective experience when it comes to the spirituality and
Yeah.
so I could have said, the next morning when I woke up in the hospital, I could have just passed that as a blip in my brain because my body was shaken so hard because of the
Oh, yeah.
impact. And then I could have gone the scientific route and just go, okay, nothing really special happened there. And
Mm-hmm.
to be honest, I was really embarrassed to share with people what happened to
Mm.
me the night of the car accident because I was in academia. So my
Oh,
friends,
yeah.
my, my, even the partner I had at the time were very intellectual people. And so this kind of stuff would have been passed as um,
Woohoo.
woohoo, exactly. And not the good woohoo, like the stuff.
Yeah. There's a good woohoo. I didn't know about that.
Well, I think that, sometimes you can, for them, they would cross the line into
Yeah.
maybe even insanity, or mental health
Yeah.
issues, right? So
Yeah.
you
That's
have
so
to,
true.
yeah, you have to be careful. And so I really had to change the environment around me. I had to shift my environment and choose new people, let go of some people, to be able to eventually honor what happened to me that night. So
Wow.
just
I have goosebumps when you're sharing that.
just to like rewind a little bit. So I was, I kind of on a fast track to, the life that I thought I was supposed to live, like a
Yeah.
lot of your listeners, a lot of people, you kind of, you get a sense from society, from your parents, from the people around you, and from your ego that in order to be successful in life, this is the path that you should
Yeah.
take when it comes to money, when it comes to career, when it comes to image, how you're perceived, how the world will perceive you. And so I was very, very strong that way. Like when I wanted something, I would go for it. So that's always been me, but I would go for the things that I thought people wanted from me, not who I really was.
Was it like the conditioned self, Anne? Would you call that the conditioned self?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Really based in fear, of not being enough, of not being loved if I don't become what they want me to be. And living, neck up, like my attention being
Yeah.
mostly in my head. Like, I didn't know that there was a world under here. I didn't know that my body was actually everything and had my back. Like, I always thought
Yeah.
about my body as against me. Oh, it's sick today. Oh, it's hurting today. Or and then when you feel emotions, you're like, oh no, that will not help me on my path where I'm going. Right.
Oh,
So
yeah.
even if it was unconscious, I wouldn't have been able to say that back then. Oh, I'm living more mostly in my head, not in my body. I wouldn't have been to say those words because when that's not your context,
Yeah.
your world is very small, right?
Yeah.
You
And
think
that when everybody's living from head up too, like you look around and it's the only model that you have. It's the normal, you
it's
know?
life, it's it. You're in the fishbowl. Yeah, exactly. You're in the fishbowl, not knowing that there's an ocean,
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
beside you. Um, yeah. So I was in academia, and I wouldn't say I was happy. I don't think I knew what happiness was. I definitely didn't know what love was. Love was very conditional. Love was, if I do something for you, if you do something for me, then I have to do something for you.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Feeling in debt.
yeah, it was transactional. So, um, and I went on I went on a drive with a friend, with my boyfriend at the time. We had friends in the back seat, and we were going golfing. And at the time, I hated golfing, and I still went because I thought in relationships you have to make compromises,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's just kind of a silly thing. But I just remember thinking, I don't want to go
Being
golfing.
the good girlfriend, you know?
Exactly. Um, and then at the time, my partner, so he took a left turn into oncoming traffic, and a half-ton truck hit our car. And on the impact, my lungs collapsed and my liver lacerated in half, and I lost consciousness. I came back to consciousness, and, I couldn't breathe. My lungs still weren't working, so I passed out again. And then that's when it happened. I saw like a movie in front of my mind's eyes, my life. But it wasn't the life that I was living. It was the life that I came here to live. I could tell, I could feel it so strongly. I saw the people that I loved. I saw all the people that loved me. I saw that I was writing, that I was teaching. But the biggest thing was the feeling. I had this feeling of deep, deep unconditional love. Again, did not have the language for that back then, but the feeling was just of unity with everything and of knowing. I knew that I was on the wrong path and that I was making decisions that were not aligned with why I was born. It was so clear. And this experience deep inside my body was really, really powerful. Like anything I'd ever experienced before, this experience of deep, deep knowing and deep love. And so,
It was almost like beyond the mind, Anne. Like it's beyond the
oh
mind, you
yeah,
know? You
it
have a
was,
feeling beyond the rational, the logical, beyond the conditioned mind, and even just beyond the mind. It's bigger than that.
exactly. So beyond logic, beyond the intellect, this was not thoughts. They were not thoughts. It
Yeah, it's
was an
feeling.
experience and it was a remembering of who I really was. And so, and it was out of my control. And I think that that's a big thing to remember, because the best things that happen to you in life were never planned. The very best thing were never
Yeah,
planned. They happen. They surprise you. They delight you.
yeah.
And so it really helps us understand that the more we let go of control of life moving through us, the more we will be delighted and surprised by our own force, as opposed to trying to control and manage and
Yeah,
plan and use
yeah.
the intellect to make our life what it is.
Fit in the box.
Exactly. I woke up the
Oh, that's
next
such.
day in the hospital.
Oh, we have a small lag. Sorry, guys, at
Oh,
home we have a small lag, so sometimes we overlap. Go ahead, Anne.
so I woke up the next day in the hospital, and I promised, like I didn't say this to anyone. I promised myself I would change my ways. Like I would find a way to make my way to this life that I saw. And that was my promise to myself. And I knew it had to start with loving myself for who I really was. And I didn't know how to start, but I knew that that's what I needed to do.
That's so inspiring that you're sharing that because I think it's a big part of awakening. We kind of want to awaken without like shaking our relationships, shaking our jobs. I was also in academia teaching in a university, and that had to go at one point because it was not aligned with who I was anymore. But I also had this plan life for myself where I was going to be this university teacher traveling around the world and teaching about art therapy. I was an art therapist. And at one point, you have to let go of things, and the letting go of boyfriend, girlfriend, sometimes money, identity, what I thought I was, what I wanted to become, where I was going, and also like having the reflection sometimes of people that are not happy with who we're becoming, that they like the old version of us. And so they're attached to the person that we were, that does not disturb things, that does not necessarily question things, that is also in the mind and not connected to the heart. So I love that you're sharing that because I know a lot of folks that I guide in one on one in groups are going through that, having the process of, oh, I'm ready for self-love. I'm ready for deep connection with myself, but it implies that your environment is going to change and is going to move, and it might be easy or sometimes it might be super messy and a crisis and very difficult because maybe you incarnated like in a family that is not up with your plan of awakening. They're like, yeah, nah, not really, not for me. You're turning into like a woohoo person. So maybe we can talk a little bit about that and about the process where you had to let go of things and what helped you let go of relationships, of identity, as we said, like academia, of what other people are going to think. How did you think? How did you go through the grieving and the shedding of the layers, you know?
Yes. I
The fun part.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, the first step was really to let go of the relationship I was in, which was toxic. But it was similar to the relationship I had with my family, right? So it was how I was taught to love and to be loved. So the idea of being free and being loved at the same time had never occurred to me as a possibility. When you're loved, you're trapped. And it is a contract almost. And so for me, it was about
Wow.
redefining, what I was worth and what love was. And it started with a relationship. So really accepting real love, free love, love that is
Freedom.
conditional in my life, to start to notice it around me, to start to see it as for what it is. Because before I wouldn't even recognize it. If someone loved me unconditionally, I would be annoyed. I would be angry because I would say, you're either lying to me or you're,
You're fake.
crazy. You're fake. Exactly. This is not real. This is not true. And also, this is dangerous. So when you grow up with, where love is in small supply, you know that it's dangerous to be loved like that, because you will open yourself up and then you will be hurt. So
That's so
then
true.
love is dangerous as well.
Yeah.
And so really learning how to accept it, see it, welcome it, and then be able to be in relationship with that kind of love was the next few years after the car accident. But I was still in academia, and I was living with pain, with chronic pain in my sinuses. And this had been going on for a few years. And some of your listeners might relate to, okay, it starts with a little something like, okay, I had a sinus infection, and then it goes away, and then, oh, it comes back, but it's a little longer, and the antibiotics don't work, and then
Oh yeah.
painkillers don't work. And then the next thing you know, you're in constant pain. It's not just something that happens once in a while.
Yeah.
And so so I wake up in the morning, the first thing I would think of, oh, is I have so much pain in my face and my head and my jaw. And then I go back to bed at night, and it's the last thing you think about. So when you live with chronic pain, it's just your joy starts to leave. and
Yeah.
and and I remember going to see like all these naturopaths and these acupuncture, chiropractor. I got scans done. I got X-rays, like everything, and no, and I changed my diet, like allergy testing, everything, and nothing would work. And I
Oh yeah.
remember a Reiki practitioner saying to me, "Well, sometimes there's things you just have to live with." And I thought, I'm a writer.
No.
Like so at the time I was writing for my PhD, and I was like, I'm a writer. Like every time I sit to write, it hurts. Like this can't be my life. There's no way I'm going to accept that. But I didn't know what to do. And I talk about this in the book. My
Yeah.
mother-in-law invited me to a workshop called Women in Leadership. And at the time, it really appealed to my intellect, that title. I was like, oh, yes, I'm already pretty bossy. Maybe one day I'll, be the head of a department in university. Yeah, women in leadership sounds great. So I accepted the invitation. But really, like, if I'd known what was going to happen there, I would never have gone. So I'm kind of glad the universe and my mother tricked me into going to this one. And so I get there, and I'm sitting in a room with 12 other women, and the women, the teacher is right in front of me, and she starts to talk about a leadership that comes from within and that is connected to emotions and sensations. And deep breath is a huge part of this way of leading in the world. And the more she's talking, the more my head hurts, and I'm getting annoyed because I don't actually understand what she's saying, right? Like you can't understand that with your intellect.
No.
And the women in the room are breathing deeply. Some of them start to cry spontaneously. And I'm like, what is happening? Where am I? What is going on? Like, this is not what I was sold.
Yeah. Where's the leadership part?
Exactly. Yeah. Where's the intellectual part? And
Yeah.
so, and she looks at me and she can, and like the pressure in my head is so intense. All I want to do is wait for her to take one little break in her speaking so I can go to the washroom and just not come back. But she never took a break, and she could tell that I was under pressure. So she looked at me and she said, "Are you okay?" And Mylène, I could feel this conversation between my heart and my head. Like my head was like, "Say you're fine. Because if you say anything else, we can't help you. Like you are going to lose control." Because my
Yeah.
body was like under so much pressure.
Yeah.
And I could feel my heart saying, "Oh my gosh, sweetheart, please say something. You're in so much pain. Just open your mouth and say something."
Mm.
So I said, I listened to my head and I said, "Oh no, I'm fine." And I thought, okay, go on and move on to the next person. And she said, "Anne, I invite you to take a deep, deep breath." And again, like my head's like, "Mayday, Mayday, do not do that." And then my heart is like,
Yeah.
"Please, please, you're ready." And
Mm.
so I took this deep counter counter instinctual, but deeply intuitive breath
Mm.
in through the nose and out through the mouth. And as I start to breathe deeply like that, oh my gosh, my body started to
Mm.
shake. I'm the one in this mess of snot and tears and the sounds that are coming out of my mouth. Like it's a tsunami of energy moving through
Mm.
my body. She even came over and put her hand on my back and said, "Everyone, this is what it looks like when you hold 28 years of emotional baggage in your body." She was making an example out of me in front of everyone. And
Mm.
this felt like it lasted long, but it was probably it. And it felt so dramatic, like I'd lost control in front of people. I'm supposed to be a leader,
Yeah.
right? But I just completely lost control, and um my body took over.
Mm.
And then after a minute or so, my body settled, and nobody was really bothered by it. They were just breathing, doing their own thing. And then my body settled, and then it was so calm in my head, in my body. I could feel my heart. I never felt. And the pain was gone, and it had been there for 2 years. It was completely gone. And this was almost 20 years ago. It hasn't come back, Milan.
Wow, that's incredible.
And the feeling I had in my chest was similar to the feeling of the near-death experience. And I thought,
Mm.
whoa. In the accident, I realized the what, but it was almost like it was I didn't do that. It just
Mm.
happened. And
It just
now I
happened.
realize the
Mm.
how I can be an agent of awakening for myself using my body. And
Mm-hmm.
I was so that was another awakening. So there's not just
Mm-hmm.
one awakening. And then there's more after that. That was 20 years ago. There's so many more after that. But that was the biggest whoa. This I
Mm.
have to share with people. This is massive.
Oh yeah. I love the whole point of the podcast is to talk about the process of awakening because we imagine it's like an overnight thing. You know, we imagine it happens and then you're done until the end of your life and you manifest this perfect life with this perfect partner, with this perfect finances. And that's kind of the image the industry of spirituality is selling right now. And I work with a lot of people who are discouraged by like trying to get to a final point. And I love that you're saying it's multiple awakenings. It's not just one awakening. It comes in different layers, and throughout, we're going to awaken until the end, until we transition on the other
Yeah,
side, right?
I would tell people to be wary of people who say I've arrived. Like if someone says, I've got it, I've arrived, I would
Yeah.
walk in the other direction, because that's
Yeah.
not, by virtue of having a physical body and being moved by your
Yeah.
own life force, it will never end. It will just get, easier a little bit, and it will get more real and more authentic.
Yeah.
You'll feel like you're really in your life as opposed to kind of watching it
Yeah.
happen. Um, but the invitations will keep coming. That won't
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I also love that you share that with the sinus story, that you've been to doctors, you've been to naturopath, like massage therapists, like you've you've tried like many things, your diet, and nothing was working. And I think when I see our medical system right now in Quebec, when I see how ill people are and that we're turned towards science so much and we're turned toward medication, and yes, it can help us, like modern medicine is amazing, but it has its limits, you know. When it comes to emotions, we don't understand so well the relationship between emotions and body, and still a lot of people are denying that it exists, even though we have really good science to show that. But I find that sometimes we turn towards like the modern medicine, and we just try and try and try, and there's no results. And I would love to say to people listening at home, if you've been sick for many years, trying like medication, trying many, many things, and you haven't opened the door from
Mhm.
bottom down instead of bottom up, maybe it's a good time to do it, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe that's the invitation for you, because for me, it was also the part of my awakening was also from chronic pain and chronic fatigue, and just feeling like I can't be alive, like my body doesn't function well. And that's what opened the door for me. I was not doing well, going to all the doctors, having all the scans. And even if they did the scans, they couldn't find anything. Like they would tell me, you know, your intestines are okay, your stomach is okay. And I'm like, I'm in really deep pain. And then I realized, oh, it's not from the physical part, it's my chakra. My solar plexus is like so tight that it's my energy body that doesn't feel right. It has nothing to do with my physical body. So it's not the doctors that are not good, it's just like the tool was not appropriate. And then I started connecting with my solar plexus. And you talk about that in the book, so I want to go there, connecting to the fire, because I think it's also a part of the awakening that we don't talk about. Like we imagine that awakening is like a soft thing and you become a spiritual person and you're not angry anymore and you're not messy anymore. And to me, the awakening and going connecting with my fire, which I still have to learn and embody, it was messy. It was anger. And so when I read that in your book, I was like, she's my soul sister. You know, like, let's talk about that. Let's talk about like sometimes having physical illness or symptoms that come from taming your fire, holding it back, not showing it. So it was really the inspiring part of your book, I found. So I'd like to share that a little bit with the listeners.
Yeah. And I think to like transition from what you just said about like looking at a different lens, through a different lens, like when you are in pain, and that is I think a lot what we're seeing a lot too right now in the spiritual industry, like you mentioned it, there is a lot of spiritual bypassing.
Yeah.
So people who will not get the answers they want from the traditional medical system, and then they'll
Yeah.
go to spirituality wanting to do the same thing, where they're giving responsibility away to spiritual healers, right?
So
So
true.
you said, oh, I looked at my chakras, but the way that you did it and the way that you said is you took full responsibility for
Yeah.
yourself,
Yeah.
for the experience of being in yourself. But a
Yeah.
lot of people could go to a chakra practitioner and
So
give
true.
power away to that chakra practitioner and say, oh, she's healing me. And so
Oh, I love that.
that's also not useful. That's
Yeah,
so
that's so
it,
true.
right, because I think during the pandemic we saw a lot of that divide in
Yeah.
spirituality online. So there's this like, oh, I still want someone else to hold the power, because at the end of the day, I really want to be the victim because that's easier. Or
Yeah.
wait a second, I'm the universe. I'm the entire reality just being projected. So I have to be responsible for my inner
Yeah.
experience. That means I have to look in the face the dark stuff and the shitty stuff. And I have to look in the
Yeah.
face the fire. I have to look
Yeah.
at how angry and pissed off I am. And there's only spiritual current. I think that's not very ladylike. It's not the divine feminine to be
Yeah.
angry.
Yeah.
But it's
But it is.
actually what is needed right now, especially from women,
Yeah.
because we have decades and millennia behind us of suppression of that fire.
Yeah.
And we don't remember as a people, like as women,
Mm.
we don't remember what
Yeah.
it feels like to actually allow the entire instrument of the body to move that much intensity, and then
Mm.
to have it come and express outside of ourselves. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
scary, it's intense. And then
Yeah.
when we do, we are called bitchy, we're called bossy, we're called spicy, we call, and so but it is what will change the world.
Yeah.
100%, it's what will change the world. An embodied fire, not a
Yeah.
disembodied fire, like, spewing,
Yeah.
yelling
Let's talk about the
out
difference.
of ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, and like the embodied fire and disembodied fire, I think we need to like spend a little bit more time on that, because a lot of the people that I assist are really afraid of the anger. They associate it to violence or to the person that was angry towards them and hurting them. And so can you like go, what is embodied fire like, or
I think
anger?
if you grew up with someone who was very angry, but it was disembodied, you would yourself never want to be angry in front of
Yeah.
someone else. But it's not the same. So when someone is disembodied with their anger, it means that it goes from 0 to 60 really quickly. The attention
Mm.
comes up and out of yourself, and you're not in your body, you're not connected to your wisdom, you're not interconnected with your environment, you're
Mm-hmm.
actually just disassociating because the fire is too
Mm-hmm.
intense. So we're not trying to
Yeah.
blame or judge that experience,
No.
just recognize it as that's not the fire we're talking about.
Yep.
We're talking about deep breath in the moment of massive intensity moving through the device, and then attention staying deep down at the base of the spine, breathing deeply with the body
Mm-hmm.
shaking, the lips quivering, the
Mm.
throat closing, and not abandoning yourself in that moment.
Mm.
That is embodied fire. And so
Mm.
I like the image of the difference between a volcano and a bomb, right?
Oh,
So
that's such a good image. Wow.
a volcano, so I can imagine that I have the hips of the volcano. I'm the volcano. And when I am moved by fire, it's coming from my core. It's coming from deep, deep, deep inside my belly, maybe even into my feet. Maybe it comes from the core of the earth, actually.
Mm.
And so it's not anger from past trauma. It's not anger from my ego being bruised.
Yeah.
It's actually fire.
It's
And then
integrity, right? It's your
exactly,
integrity that wants to speak.
exactly. And then it starts to move through. And then when the volcano erupts and the lava comes out, it literally reshapes the land. And
Mm.
so when you speak from that place of deep embodied fire, you reshape your body, you rewire your body to be able to handle that much intensity because
Mm.
you're capable. The device is designed for that. You won't break, it won't
Mm-hmm.
kill you. It will reshape you, and then you'll literally reshape reality by your words, which will be very
Mm-hmm.
discerned. They won't be like a bomb that explodes without
Everywhere.
intelligence or connection.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I like that
That's
difference. So
such a good image, Anne. It's
I
such a
think
good
women
image.
can
Wow.
feel the
Yeah.
depth of being a volcano anchored on the earth, and then the shaking, and then the real possibility of the land shifting around if they do speak the truth of their experience.
I often teach my student that their anger is sacred. You know, it's a sacred part of their divine. But when we live the anger like in from the survival, so from the survival part of our being, that's when it does a lot of damages. Like when you connect with your anger in the highest frequency, or the frequency where you're embodied from the divine frequency, it doesn't have the same impact. It's not like a reactive anger. Reactive anger is blaming, projecting, giving the responsibility to other. It's not the same thing. Embodied anger, for me, when I connect with that, it's my deepest light. It's my deepest truth. It's my deepest integrity. But I need the body to do that. If I try to do my sacred anger with my mind, it's not going to happen. You know, like the mind is not wired for sacred anger. So it just, and I think maybe you can put a word on this, but we say that even it's this, you say it's the work of women right now to embody this anger on earth with wisdom, you know. But I think we're going to also teach the masculine. The masculine also needs to get there, right? Like we need to learn collectively how to embody anger instead of like shutting it down, saying to kids at school, don't bully, don't push, don't. We just say don't, but we don't teach like what's under it, what's the pain that is under it, you know. So I think collectively on earth, this is our next like evolution step. Like, you know, if we really want to get where we want to get, we need to understand how to channel anger so that it becomes a sacred, really frequency for our healing. So, what do you have to say about that?
I think because the feminine is the creator of everything. So without the ground of the feminine
Yeah,
in men and in women, nothing can
yeah, that's so
nothing
true.
can be born. And so when the feminine leads the way, when the feminine is modeling a way of being that is embodied, that is connected, then the masculine will learn from it.
That's amazing.
So, as creators, the feminine in men and in women
Yeah.
are the modeling. So when we say, "Oh, I'm going to leave that to these people, and I'm going to let those people lead the way," no, it's every single one of us to allow the feminine in us, first of all, to protect it at all cost. This is I call it the pure heart, right? It is
Yeah.
this incredible wealth in resource of purity and deep sensitivity that is our greatest resource on earth right now. And we have to protect it at all costs because we really don't feel safe going out into the world being like that, connected to that pure heart. But
Yeah.
if we can protect it for ourselves first and love that aspect of ourselves, this incredible sensitivity and purity of heart, and then start to speak it and show it and share it and express it, then we will model a different way of being in the world. And modeling is the best way to teach, not to tell people what to do,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
model it.
Oh, I love that. I think it leads us to talk about boundaries then. When you say like protecting the pure heart, and here's what I'd love us to talk about. A lot of the people that I support are trying to put boundaries like in a very dysfunctional way, not knowing how else to do it. So they will do bubbles, or they will try to protect themselves from others, and they haven't learned like the somatic part of embodying boundaries. You embody boundaries with your body, you know, it's not something from the mind. And so they feel really tired trying to put these boundaries up, but they don't necessarily know the how. How do we put good boundaries so that we keep the fire and the pure heart whole? How do we do that? So you talk about it in the book, but I'd like to hear you touch a word on that.
Yeah. I talk about the difference between embodied and disembodied empathy. So
Oh, yeah.
when you're in the presence of someone, if you come up and out of yourself and you leave yourself to be in the emotions of the other person, and sometimes we notice ourselves doing that because we think if I can really feel this person, I'm going to love them. Like that's the highest way of loving
Yeah.
someone is to really feel what they're feeling and understand like their emotion and how it hurts them. Well, as soon as we do that, we don't have boundaries. We're actually, and we also have tunnel vision when that happens because we're only focused on their unique experience as opposed to being interconnected to the more that they can be. So
Yeah.
as a facilitator and as a coach and as a healer, you never want to lose touch with the more that the person can be, because that's your responsibility is to not be with them in their problems, but to hold their soul, to hold who they really are, and they might not be able
Yeah.
to see in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
When you do that, you actually put a boundary because you're saying your
Yeah.
personal experience is not as important as who you really are. Therefore, my personal experience of what's happening to you is not important. What's important is the deep connection I have with myself. Therefore, I can hold who you can be. So it's a
Mm.
very different way of relating to people.
Yeah, you say it like deep connection with myself. I think that's what helps you have really good boundaries. Where sometimes people will put, as I said, bubbles, or they try to do something exterior outside of them to create a boundary. They'll do a golden egg or something. That's okay. But the real boundary, I think, is where you say connection, deep connection with myself and with my body,
Yes,
with my divine light.
yes. And my job is not to love you. Actually, that's not my job. My job is to love myself so deeply that when you're in my presence, you can you the only thing that's possible for you is to love yourself.
Oh, that's beautiful, Anne. You have to say that again. That's beautiful because we
So my
want to
job
love the
as a
other
healer, as a
person to heal
daughter,
them.
exactly. So my job as a healer, as a daughter, as a mother is not to love you, right? Because that would come from the outside again.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true.
To learn from that. My job is to love myself so deeply that when you're in my presence, you can't help but love yourself.
Wow, that's so profound. It's like that's the core of boundaries, I think. Eh? That's
Like,
the core of boundaries because you can't absorb other people's energy when you're that inner posture. You really have to be in your body, and you really have to let go of the guilt or the responsibility that you're there to take care of the other person. We were so conditioned to think as light workers, healers, mothers, counselors that were there to take care of the other person. But you say in the book, like, that's kind of really toxic when you think about it. It's like, really, it's not helping us move forward and heal. It's just keeping us very stagnant and very codependent, like in the relationship. I'm here because I'm the healer, and because I'm the healer, I need someone to fix. And so I'm the fixer looking for someone to fix, and the person that wants to be fixed is looking for a fixer. And then when we really go into self love, we like cut these dynamics. They cannot exist anymore. And sometimes it's hard for the other person. The other person maybe wants to be filled with your love, your validation, your attention. And sometimes it's going to create conflict. But I say, and I'd like to hear a word on that. It's sometimes it's divine conflict, you know? Like love is not always like a calm river. Like love comes from a part where there's integrity, and to bring back integrity, to bring back love, sometimes there's going to have waves and conflicts and ego tantrums. But if it comes from your divine place, it's well aligned. You didn't do any wrong. So I'd like to hear you on that, because people are sometimes thinking, well, that's not love, I created a conflict. And I'm like, no, you're opening a door back to the divine order.
Absolutely. So, Wayne used to say it really well, the difference between human love, spiritual love, and divine love.
Oh
And
yeah.
so not everybody, can understand all of those, but I
Mm,
think we can all appreciate where we find ourselves on that spectrum.
yeah.
So human love is okay, so it will come and go and it will have highs and lows. I love you today, but tomorrow not so much because you got my birthday, you know. And so it's conditional, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then so it's like this thing that we use, love, we use it. It's to be
That's
used
so
for
true.
relationships and for understanding, for contract, for manipulation. Like and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's good. Sometimes human love feels really good. I'm being love bombed right now. That feels amazing, but it won't last. It just
Yeah.
doesn't last. It's ephemeral, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so spiritual love is it's always there, like it's unconditional, but it kind of ebbs and flows in intensity. So I will love you forever. You're my daughter, you're my son, you're my mom, but today I just am so annoyed at you. And so there's this like ebb and flow in intensity. It's not
Mm-hmm.
always the same, but it's always there. So I've got spiritual love. Like I understand that too thick, uh, thin and thick and thin, whatever the expression is. I'll be there with you. We'll get annoyed. We'll get mad at each other, but we have unconditional love for each other.
Mm,
Divine love has no opposites. And Wayne used to say, like, I love you with no opposites. And it took me a long time to understand what he meant when he said that. But it's all of you is always loved and has always been loved since the moment you incarnated in this planet. You've never not been loved, no matter what you did, no matter what you thought, no matter what you said, you were deeply loved. And it never wavered in intensity. It's always been the same steady, incredible, beautiful
wow.
womb there for you. It has no opposite, it never wavers, and it never ends.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of love, let's say I'm with a parent who is abusive because they're getting older and I have to take care of them. Like I'm sure a lot of people right now,
Yeah.
I mean, taking care of their elderly parent, okay?
Yeah.
Parents becoming more abusive because they're getting older, they're not changing. And so you have this deep love for them. But on the human level, it looks like you don't love them because you're not spending as much time with them as human love would say it should look
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
But on a divine love level, you're actually loving them more because you're respecting yourself, because you're loving yourself so deeply that you're not willing to betray yourself and to negotiate with your soul when your cup is not overflowing, then that is how you can love them because you're modeling to them, to their higher self, maybe if they're conscious, to them, to the people around you, that it's never worth betraying yourself to quote unquote love someone else. Never. Because it does not send the right signal to the body. It does not send the right signal to the people around you, to your children, to our daughters that we want
Yeah.
and our sons, we want them to know what it is to deeply love themselves, not in a vanity or ego way, but deeply love themselves so much that in their presence, people feel loved.
Oh, I love this example, and I think it's going to speak to a lot of people because we kind of want to force ourselves to sit there through an afternoon with a person that we don't really want to see, and then we kind of pretend to be in a good mood and to not be so irritated, and we do the human love, the right thing to do, and a lot of people struggle with that, struggle with not going as much. It can mean that there's more love. But I think to understand that, like, we really have to go through the paradigm shift, the consciousness shift, where you don't look at things from the mind, you look at things from the heart, from the body. So when you ask the body and the heart to talk, they never say the same thing as the mind. So the example that you just gave there, it just reminds me how when really we trust the heart, it's always aligned with the highest love for ourselves and for others. So that was an amazing example. Thank you so much. You know what? And like time is flying by. I can't even imagine. Like we just started the conversation and we're almost close to the end. So maybe we'll have to meet again and chat again to dive even deeper. But before we before we go, I would like people to know how to get in touch with you if they feel called by your work, if they felt the connection to understand better how to embody their spirituality, how to be closer to their fire, how to connect with their anger. I'm thinking maybe we should hold a retreat that is going to be about angry, pissed off light worker. That would be like a good title, for you're welcome for all the angry, pissed off light worker, as you said, to embody the fire,
Absolutely.
the counterintuitive. So if people want to connect with you, how do they do that? Through your website? Like, what's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, well, my website, anneberube.com, has so many resources. So there's,
Yeah,
a couple of free e-courses there. There's my blog, my newsletter,
yeah,
and there's also my podcast called
yeah,
Embodied. And so
yeah.
maybe then you'll have to come on my podcast.
That'd be fun. Then we can have the other hour of conversation we
There we
wanted to
go.
have.
Exactly. Stay tuned and meet us on my podcast. But the Burnout Antidote, the book, just came out as an audio book. And so I know for me, when I'm listening to a spiritual teacher read their own book, it's
Yeah,
like a whole different book. So I
yeah.
really recommend listening to the Burnout
Oh,
Antidote
yeah.
on audiobook. It don't let the title fool you, because it actually could be called a 7-step process to soul realization. It is the process in my signature program, the Happy Sessions, which I lead twice a year for the past 13 years. It's a process of embodiment, healing, and soul realization.
I just want to say, Anne, you said don't let the title fool you, and it fooled me because I looked at the title, The Burnout Antidote, and I thought to myself, I'm not burned out. I'm just exhausted all the time, but I'm not burned out. Like a part of me was like, I had many burnouts in my life, and I was kind of pushing on the book, the title,
Yeah, yeah,
and then I started reading it, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm more burned out than I think.
yeah.
And it's about really like being tired, we're a society that is so tired. So it's not, you don't have to be burned out to read this. I just want to say.
Exactly, exactly. And it is more of a crisis in meaning because there's always
Yeah,
deeper meaning to what's happening. So you're tired,
yeah.
you're exhausted, you're annoyed, you're just not feeling the same kind of enthusiasm for life. And then you think, if I just shift a couple things around, maybe I'll feel
Oh, yeah.
better. But it's the deeper meaning than that. Like, where is your why coming from? And that's what the book
Yeah.
is about. Like, are you actually serving other people because of your past trauma? Or are you serving people because it's who you really are?
Oh,
There's a
yeah.
big difference. There's a big difference, and they can go hand in hand. As in, you enter being of service through the trauma you've been through, and then you emerge on the outside going, oh, and it's also who I am. And so I don't need to be needed anymore. I'm just
Yeah.
serving because it's who I am. So
Yeah. Yeah. For all the overgivers out there, that's the best book ever. I just devoured it, like every page. It was amazing. Yeah. Yeah. And now I'm like, oh, it's too bad I read it before the audio. I would have loved your voice.
yeah, yeah,
I'll
yeah.
have to listen to it again because I think it's a book. There's a lot of exercises too. You give responsibility back to the person because sometimes, Anne, we read all these spiritual books and it goes just in the head and we don't do the work and we don't apply it and we just use it it's like just in the brain and it's on the shelf and all the spiritual stuff, but in your day to day you still don't feel good. So
Yeah.
you have to do the exercises. They're very powerful. I did all of them and they're very, very
It
powerful.
could take you a year. It should
Yeah.
take someone to a year to read the book, because if you're going to use it as a process of
Yeah.
awakening for yourself, take your time, because it is not for the intellect. It's actually,
Yeah.
to take in and actually take action in your life.
Yeah. Transform the body, how the from here to the from how do we say bottom down? Yeah.
Yep,
From
below the
bottom down.
neck.
Below the neck, yeah. Oh, well, it was really a deep and meaningful conversation. I'm so happy, and my heart is just wide open. I just can feel the love flowing and the joy flowing. So, thank you very much for your time. And yeah, maybe we'll meet on your next an episode in your podcast. That would be really fun. And until then, well, I wish to everyone that they just keep on expanding and finding really, really their true essence. Coming back to their core is the most important thing. And I'm pretty sure that your book is going to help them through that. So thank you very much, Anne.
Thank you, Milan. Thank you
Thank
for
you,
having
everyone.
me.
Thank you. Bye bye.